Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter for another episode of So Chatty, and it's October the 10th, 2025. We're a third of the way through the month already. Only about 20 days to Halloween. Yay! Which means we can open up the candy and I can eat it. Yeah.
You can open the candy and eat it anytime you want.
I like to save it for Halloween.
Well, is that because you bought extra candy so you can eat it yourself?
Maybe. There could be method to my madness. Okay, so let's just jump right into, before we get on with everything, what I have been working on. And it's going to look pretty much the same as the last time you saw it. If I can find the bloody... Okay, where's my cursor? Magic mouse my hole.
Well, it has to have an operator.
Oh, yeah, go away.
It.
Anyways, let's take a look at this. You're going to see some sidebar here today because we're going to be using this a lot today, as you're going to find out. But right now, so this is not the whole of Stormy Sea. It's still hanging on the display on the design board. But I made yesterday. I finished up 4 more blocks for it, and there are 4 of this block. It's all the same block. A lot of flying geese in this sucker. In there. So anyways, I'm getting there. There's not that many more blocks to go. Slowly but surely. And that's all I've got to show you for what I've been working on. What has Walter got to show? Nothing.
I'm still working on that shirt, but I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
So probably tomorrow.
I hope I can still fit into it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you probably made it
double
too big.
extra large anyway.
I was going to say it was too big. I'm shrinking.
Well, it's the same size as the one you're wearing. So.
Oh, yeah, and it's loose. See, look.
Well, I can make it smaller next time if you want.
No, because you never know. Go up and down. I don't know what I weigh. I haven't weighed myself in a while. Probably weigh about the same when last time I weighed myself.
Well, I know I'm been at the same weight.
And what is that?
180.
Last time I weighed myself, I was 182. Yeah, well, I'm afraid to weigh myself. I don't like scales. I don't like what they say. They lie. You know, they lie. It's fake scales. Yeah. Okay, so announcements. Sewing with Stephen, as usual, Wednesdays. You know the routine. Fall retreat. Okay, update on the number. So, had a whole big influx on Monday, which is the first day of registration. Always get a big number then. I think by the end of Monday, I had about 50. So that was pretty good. But now it's coming in dribs and drabs. And so far today, I've only had 1 registration. We're up to 72 registrations. So that means I have about 23 spots left. So I know that a lot of you are sitting on the fence because I started the registration 2.5 weeks before it's happening. And you're probably, don't want to make the decision until 2 days before. Well, that's your choice. If you, so think about it, because what often happens, I have found in the past, is the first couple of days I have a big influx of people registering, and then it dies. It dies for about a week or so, just about the beginning of the 7 days before the retreat's going to happen. There's another influx comes, and that's when sometimes I have to break a heart. But well, not really, because even if I don't have a spot, I'll put you on the waiting list, and I always anticipate about 5 people or whatever out of that number. I don't usually say about 10%, but I don't know if it is even 10% of the total number will send me an email telling me something has happened in their life that's making it impossible for them to come to it, and which is fine. They've let me know in advance of that, then I can put somebody in from the waiting list.
You only get on a blacklist if you don't show up and you don't let anybody know in advance that you can't come, or something happened right at the last minute. You were going to push that button to join in, and suddenly you got a horrible call that somebody died. Okay, well, that might be an extreme example, but it actually has happened. So, and then they write to me
after the day, like very shortly after the day, and say, I'm so sorry, this is what happened. I don't put you on the blacklist for that, because those are things we cannot anticipate. Okay? Like I said, life happens. But, you know, if you don't bother to acknowledge, and I do have people on the blacklist who have never acknowledged why they didn't show up and they took a spot. And I want everybody who wants to be here and can be here to have a spot. That's why I do that. But
yeah,
anyways,
it's more because you're not paying anything for it, and you don't really want people taking up spots because they're not sure they're going to come.
You know, there's always those people who, well, Walter does this when he books hotel rooms. He books 3 hotel rooms when we only need 1, but he waits until the last minute to no, cancel.
Actually, I don't wait till the last minute to cancel. I like to cancel. I'll cancel when I'm sure I know which one I want.
He's waiting for the better offer.
And it's way in advance.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not booking a hotel room for Saturday and waiting till Friday to cancel it type of thing. I'm booking a hotel for 6 months down the road, and when I cancel it, it's 5 months down the road or something like that.
But I think the point I was trying to make is, there are people who book, but they're not that committed. If something better comes along in their mind, there's something better, but they're leaving their options open. Well, I get the part about leaving your options open, but it would be different if I actually charged for this and it was no refund. There was no refund on whatever, but I don't do that. And maybe I should, but I don't have the facility to do that. And I'm not getting involved in money, as you know. But anyways, we have talked about that before, so we don't need to dwell on the point. But what I'm saying is you'll want to make up your mind as soon as you possibly can, because with each day that passes, even though they're not coming in right at the moment in mass quantities, they are still coming in, and that's chipping away at the spots I have left. Okay. Pop-up sew day this Saturday, October the 11th, 8 a.m. I open the doors as always. A lot of people get confused about this. I blame it on time zones. And if I could change time zones, I would, but I can't. I've had a couple of people say they would love to come, but 4 a.m. in the morning is too early for them. Because I started at 8. If you're out on the East Coast, well, that would only be 5 a.m. But either way, I get the point. Yeah, that is too early. But you don't have to be there as soon as the virtual doors open up. The pop-up sew days, as is Sewing with Stephen, are always come and go as you please. If you can't make it right at the very beginning, that doesn't matter. You're not going to miss anything on those events because there isn't like any special guest speakers or anything like that.
The only thing you'll end up being is that your day will be shorter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's all. It'll just be a little shorter day for you. And we have people that come on Wednesdays and they've got appointments on the same day a little later in the day. So they come for a couple of hours in the morning, go to their appointment, and if they're able to, they may come back, or if they're not, that's okay. That it's very loosey-goosey, okay, for that, because you don't have to register for it or anything like that. So if you're out on the West Coast, but you really want to come to one of the sew days, come when you feel is an appropriate time for yourself, according to your time zone. That is perfectly all right. And having said that, the retreat itself is not quite the same. Yes, you do not have to be at the retreat right when I open up the doors, because I'm opening up the doors at 7 a.m. in the morning, 7:30 a.m. The official opening time, the official start of the whole thing is 9 a.m. my time, Eastern. But I'm here anyways, and I'm up and it's going, so I figure anybody wants to get an early start on it, they're more than welcome to do that. But you can show up at noon. You have a reserved spot. That is your spot. I will not remove that for the entire day. It'll be there no matter what time you decide that you're able to make it. The only difference here is I have scheduled events, and you will get an agenda. Those of you that have registered, you will get an agenda. It will show you when the guest speakers are speaking on that, and you can plan your day around those. So if there's a guest speaker you really want to hear and they're coming on at 10 o'clock my time, then if you're out on the West Coast, if you're out in Vancouver or California or someplace like that, then you would have to be here. Let's see, that's 8. No, 7. It would be 7 o'clock in the morning for you. Sorry, I can't do anything about time zones. But yeah, but it is still kind of because your spot is reserved. If you need to go away for an hour or something, you can. Your spot is there.
Or you can get up early and watch the the presentation at 10, which would be 7 your time, and then go back off for an hour and have another nap. And,
well, you could do it that way too,
and then rejoin again. So.
Yeah. Personally, I think that's a stupid idea.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? People are different.
Whatever. Whatever floats your boat. Okay. All righty. So let's get into today's topic. Now, today's topic is going to be done in a little different way. I have a lot of pictures to show you that are examples of what we're talking about. And if you saw the title, it says Designing the Perfect Sewing Area and How We Failed. We are going to show you our sewing areas. They are in exactly the condition that they're in every day. Walter's laughing because his sewing area looks very different from my area, but we are very different people when it comes to the way we organize things. So first thing is, I will be showing you, I've divided this up according to a couple of articles that I found that I've put the link in the show notes for about, setting up your ideal sewing room. Now, having said that, we're all different. We're all different in our organization abilities. We're all different in our design decors. We're all different about how we want to store things. We're all different according to how much space we have and that kind of thing too. So there is no such thing as an ideal formula for creating the ideal sewing space. It all depends on what's ideal for you. And in our case, what works for me does not necessarily work for Walter, and definitely what works for him does not work for me, because we are two very different people, but we get to the same end. We just go about it in different ways. So this is not a criticism. I'm not trying to put us in competition and say my way of doing something is better than the way Walter's way of doing something, and vice versa. Although my way probably is. But I
and my state of my sewing room right now is messier than it normally is, but
yeah, right. It depends on what scale you're using to measure that.
I do have more stuff on my desk than I normally have.
So. Oh, do you? Okay, I didn't really notice that.
I haven't cleaned up for a bit.
Yeah, well, yeah. But anyways, we're going to talk about that, and we are comparing our styles, but it's not a judgment, okay, here on that. Oh, you getting important calls, or just something I missed?
No. I was seeing if my ring thing were just going to show up.
Okay.
So Amazon delivery.
Yeah. Okay. Now you just got me completely off track.
Okay. Well.
But anyways, the two articles that I found that I thought were really interesting, and I'll show you them up here on the screen. This one I found on the internet called The Ultimate Guide to Setting Up Your Sewing Space. It had a lot of great ideas. It looked at it from a bunch of different points of view: physical space, your budget, sewing tools, storage style. It tends to focus more on people who do general sewing or garment sewing than quilters. But I think most of the ideas here are the same, except we don't usually have a Judy. Things like that. And the other article comes from the UK, and it's called Your Guide to the Perfect Sewing Room Setup. And again, I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect one, because it depends on what you want. But they talk about a lot of very interesting things, break it down for you. So there's ideas in there, especially if you're thinking about revamping your existing situation, or you've got a new situation, like you've got a new area that you want to, develop into your sewing space. Those 2 articles are in the show notes for today. But I took them apart and I divided them into certain sections. And in the process of doing that, I also took pictures. I took a lot of pictures of both my sewing area and Walter's sewing area. And you're going to see what these are. Again, it's not a comparison. It's just to give you ideas of things, you might want to consider. But I also want you to know this is exactly how they look. We did not clean up our rooms. We didn't try to arrange things. Well, it'll be apparent.
He didn't give me the opportunity to clean up our room.
I want you to see the real life, because mess happens. If you're a creative, if you're a sewist, a quilter, whatever, you know what your sewing room is going to look like. Very few of us actually put things away after we have used them as we're working. Well, I do. But I said most of us don't. And there's our personality types. My personality type is I'm a type A. Everything has to have its spot so I can find it when I want it. I can't work in a mess. It has to be cleaned up. I cannot leave my sewing area at the end of the day in a mess. Everything needs to be organized. That's the way I am in everything in my life. I have always been that way. That's my personality. Walter's personality is he's more of a random organizer. What I mean,
and then I start cleaning up when it begins to tick me off.
Usually that involves a shovel, but the point is, like, I wouldn't be able to find. I can't find anything in his sewing room. But I'll say,
well, I can't find anything in yours either. So,
well, yeah, but mine have labels on it.
Yeah, but they have labels on stuff. But even if I come to you and say, "Oh, where's this?" then you're still hunting through your drawers, even though they have labels on it.
Well, sometimes I forget what the label means, but I know one person that's a subscriber on here regular, and she has a really great system. What she does is she makes lists on her phone of where she puts things. So she can go back and say, now, where did I put that? And actually, I kind of started something like that, but I didn't maintain it. That might have been too organized for me, which is hard to believe. But yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is his organizational theme is, it's like one of those people with a desk. You may have worked with somebody like that, piled high with papers. And you go, where's that report thing? Figuring they can never find it. And they reach into the center of a pile and pull it out. Here it says. He's not quite like that.
No, I'm sort of in between.
Yeah, but yeah. So anyways, it's not a comparison. It's not a judgment. It's just to show you reality as we talk about what they think the ideal is. So let's get on with that. And let's start with the first thing on the list, which is physical space size. So I'm going to switch things. I need to use this side one because I have a lot of pictures. Okay, this is my sewing area. Okay. Yeah, I guess it's fairly neat. I did not clean it up. This is the way it always looks. Okay, it always looks this way. And I have areas, as you're going to see as we go through this today, of where certain things belong. This is Walter's. Now, it's very awkward for me to get in there and take I need to have a fish lens, or what do they call it? Wide angle, fisheye lens. Because his sewing area and my sewing area are different in size. Mine is much bigger than Walter's. Walter's is one of our bedrooms.
Yeah, it's a 10 by 10 bedroom.
Yeah, and that's where his embroidery and his sewing machine are. And then he also has this area. Oops, clicked on the wrong picture here. He has this area as well, which is where the serger is.
Well, my serger's in a bag right now, but and then I have 2 irons on the one side, but as you can, and then I have a bunch of bags on the floor that have stuff.
And his irons and his stabilizers and things like that. We'll be revisiting this spot in a bit, but that just gives you the idea of the physical size of what we're dealing with. So mine, yes, is bigger. And the reason mine is bigger too is this used to be my craft room. This is a room, when we moved into this, we're the first owners of this house. It was, we saw it being built. And they had designed this room as, I think, like a family room. It's in our, basically it's in our basement, but we live in a raised bungalow house. So most of this room is above ground.
Yeah, so the room actually is about 12 feet wide and about 25 feet long.
Yeah. And when we first moved into this house, you see the green counters over here on the side. Those have been here for 30 years because we built those in. When I say we, Walter built these
actually
in.
What they actually are were old IKEA filing drawers with countertop on top of them.
Yeah. And and I have another set which you can't see in this picture that are over to the side of us, where, well, actually you can sort of see where my printers are in there. That's a counter there as well, but that's my 3D printing area too. So yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a big space for this. And over the years, we've added things like this bank of cupboards that are here. And we put this bookshelf in, which actually you'll see a better shot of it when because I put my fabric on it now. But Walter made it look like it's a built-in one. It's not a built-in one, actually. There's a bit of a trick to it, but we'll talk about that later. And when this was my craft room, there were certain things that weren't here then. Like this center island. I did have a center island, but not like this. It was smaller, and it was a couple of those skinny IKEA island things for kitchens. And that's what I did a lot of my crafting on. Then I got rid of those and I put this all in, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. So yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a big space. I could use more because the space is filled. Yeah, that's what happens when you have space. So basically, what would be the ideal for any of this? Well, ideally, I would say a space double this size. Like you said, what, 12 feet by what?
About 25.
Long, yeah. And I'm not, is that 12 feet from?
12 feet wide.
Yeah, okay.
No, 25 feet long.
Yeah, but I was thinking of the alcove by the stairwell.
Oh, well, that doesn't really.
So you're not counting that in, are you? In the measurements? No, you're just counting this area.
I'm just counting, yeah, but that alcove I'm not counting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because another place in behind us, like you can see between us, there's stuff hanging out on the wall. That's the stairwell that comes down here and then goes into the rec room in the other. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, if 12 feet are good, 24 would be better. And I do know there are some very lucky people in the world that have that. And some people take over parts of their houses that they're not really using on a regular basis. I have heard many people have said they have a dining room, they never use it, they converted the dining room over into a sewing room. And
what we could do is we could take the recreation room and you can make that into a sewing room, and then we'll just move the TV set in here and use it as a TV room.
Oh, do you see the gears running in my head? No, because we have a fireplace in there and we're not doing that. But anyways, this works for me. For Walter, well, what you're not seeing here, because I can't get the pictures, over here on this right-hand side, there's a desk. And a big monitor, a big TV on the wall here, and there's another bookcase. Actually, there is a picture I have of that later on when we talk about storage. So, like, he's got his computer in there too.
Yeah.
So
it's my what I used to call my office as well.
Yeah. Now, I have talked to him, but he poo-poos it all the time about ways he could get even more storage space in this room. We'll come to that. So anyways, basically, ideally, having a huge space would be nice. We'd all like that. But unfortunately, most of us have what we have in our house. We have to work with. You know, kids move out, grow up, and I've heard lots of people say, "Oh yeah, they're gone now. I'm taking over their bedroom. That's going to become my sewing room or sewing room number 2 or something like that." Okay. Somebody asked me about this the other day, and it's about lighting. Well, you need a lot of lighting in a sewing room. At least I do. And I have a lot of lights in my room. And here's some examples of this. I have this one's a recent addition. There used to be a track light here. We've had a couple of track lights in there. And you want to know something? Track lighting, I don't like. I don't like it because it casts shadows. Trying to get it sounds like a great idea so you can pinpoint your light in certain areas you want. But I find that creates shadows when you do that kind of a thing. So I don't know. How did we find this?
Well, actually, we went into Costco one day and they had these lights available, and I got one for my bedroom or my sewing room because I had a light in there, just an incandescent type light, or well, actually, it would have been a LED at that point, but it used bulbs, right? And it only was
Walter's light.
260-watt bulbs in the light. And I never found it had enough light for me, right? So I thought, well, I'll get this one. It's an LED. It's very interesting. It's just a circle of LED lights in there, and it is very bright.
Yeah.
It is so bright that I bought a dimmer because I don't like it that bright normally. And but I can turn it right up, and it adds a lot of light to my room.
Now his room is smaller, as we've already said, so it casts light. Personally, when I go into his room, I find, and now he's got, well, I have 3 windows in my room where the stained glass is here and here. But those windows are partially blocked by bushes that we have out there. And there's another window that you can't see off to the right as well. So I have that. His room tends to be he has a big window down here.
You see the one where the sewing machine is, you can see the window.
Oh, right. Here we go.
Yeah, I have a fairly big window in there. It lets out quite a bit of light, so often I can do without turning the light on in my room at all. But if I'm sewing or doing something, I like a lot more light. So if that light that I have in the middle of the ceiling can get quite bright.
Yeah. So I don't think you can have too much light. In fact, okay, go back to, where's my picture of my room? Okay, so I've got this light, but I also have this light.
Yeah, so ended up, I like the one in my bedroom so much that we went back to Costco and bought a second one for Steve's room. And we took the track lighting down and put that one up, and it adds quite a bit more light.
Yeah, I really like this light. And it is on a dimmer, but I never use the dimmer. But I can dim it if I need it to. So I have these 2 lights, which were relatively inexpensive, and we've put those up too. So I've got one over top of my pressing area and one over top of my cutting area.
What else is nice about that light is you can set it so that it has different color gradients, and it's set up as daylight right now so that it will give you a truer color.
Truer light. So that's good when you're looking at your fabrics.
Yeah.
And stuff. Now over on this side, which I call my project corner, but you'll see why in a bit, I have this light as well, more of a spotlight. It's just one of those clip-on kind of things. It's just to light that corner up. There actually is another light that sits here. I never use that light. I did use it at one time. I never use it now. It's just sitting there. And I have one of these little lights. This is more for when if I went on a retreat, I would take this because it folds up. And I seldom turn that on. I sometimes do, but most of the time I don't. This is pretty good, this lighting I have in here right now. And everything in this room is connected to my Echo. And I have it all programmed so I can come in and I can just tell it to turn everything on, or I can turn certain lights on or off that I want. The whole room
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
She's always listening. So whereas Walter, you don't have yours hooked up to that, do you?
No, I don't.
You just, oh, how primitive.
I do have my ceiling light hooked up to a dimmer, which I can control with my phone, but I don't usually use it.
I just like the fact that I can tell her to turn everything on when I come down in the morning and bingo, it's all on, or when I need to turn it off, it's all off. But it is fairly bright down here. I could use more light. I can always use more light. Part of it's my eyesight too, but anyways, so really in an ideal situation, you want to have lots of lighting, and they talk in those articles about different types of lighting. They talk about ambient, they talk about daylight, they talk about spot lighting and stuff like that. So yeah, you could spend a small fortune just lighting your sewing space up until you get it exactly the way you want it. Okay, so let's talk about cleanliness. Okay, so no, that's not the pictures. All right. I don't know. Would you consider this clean? I consider it clean. One of the problems is this room is carpeted. And I've heard lots of people talk about that if they were redoing their sewing room, they would get rid of carpeting and have like hardwood or tile floor because it's easier to clean up and that kind of thing. I pull out the vacuum all the time, and I'm constantly vacuuming down here. Walters.
I vacuum every once in a while.
I don't know how.
But pull up stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I dust. You dust? I don't know. Oh, well, yeah. Because, fibers do give off a lot of dust when you're working on things. And so, yeah, I do dust. I don't dust every day, but, I kind of look around at stuff and I start to see, going, oh, look, things got dandruff on them. It's time to dust, and I will do that. But it's not dirty. And so what the point I'm making is, don't confuse disorganization with being dirty, because it's not. Okay, it's just disorganized. Messy. It's just messy, I guess, but messy doesn't mean that it's dirty. But nobody likes to work in a dirty environment either. So I would it would disgust me if I saw coffee cup stains or rings on my furniture, or little bits of dried up stabilizer or glue or something on different things. No, don't like that. Now, I know if you've got an animal. See, we don't have one anymore, and Cleo, we didn't have Cleo when we started to get into sewing. So, but when I was crafting, there was cat hair. Regularly, well, that's why we bought a Roomba. Actually, at one point, we bought, even at that time, the Roomba we had.
Actually, we got the Roomba just before our cat passed away.
Yeah, before Cleo. But just because I got the Roomba that was supposed to be for pet hair, yeah, and that kind of thing. And we still run it. We still use it. But there's one thing I can't stand is I can't stand going into some place and there's kitty hair, doggy hair on the furniture.
Yeah, we used to have friends a long time ago.
Oh,
Remember when we used to go over to their place for dinner? And then we started suggesting we don't go over for dinner.
Yeah.
Because cat hair ended up getting on the dinner
it was everything. It was everywhere. I mean, I love cats. I love animals in the whole bit. But, it's kind of nice not to have one right now because, well, you know what a cat will do anyways. If you got a quilt laying around or your fabric, they're going to be right there. I think it's cute, but...
Actually, I thought probably encouraged me to clean up more if we had a cat.
Oh, maybe. Let's go get one.
Because it would get into everything.
When we come back from Japan, we get a kitty. Well, I don't know. This is discussion for another day. So, yeah. So don't confuse messy or disorganized with dirt, because it's not. All right, moving on. They talk about tool and equipment storage. Okay, well, that's a biggie, right? Oh, can I do that? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Wait, is this the pics I want? No, I want 6 and 7. Let's see. 6. Okay, so storage areas. All right. My rulers. I have ruler racks. Some I bought, some I made. Use my 3D printer. You can make anything. And they all sit back here on this back wall. This is my pressing area here. And I keep them all there. I do have, we'll come back to this little thing on here, pegboard for that, and cupboards as well. But this is where all my rulers are, the ones that I use the most. And they're easy to get at, they're easy to put away, no problem. I'm a little disorganized here because at the time I took this picture, I was working on the embroidery machine, and these are stabilizers, and they don't usually sit there, but they are now. So you see, I can sometimes be a little bit disorganized as well. This also shows you how I store magazines, binders with stuff, which I need to go through and get rid of because I never open them. Same with these magazines and stuff. Who does magazines anymore? We have the internet. This is all my AccuQuilt stuff, though, that sits on these shelves. And this little alcove area is underneath our front step. It was part of the room when we moved in.
No, it's underneath the fireplace.
Or it's underneath the fireplace upstairs. Okay, whatever. Under there, Walter, well, we put in these shelves at one point as well. And yeah, I have them lit up. That's just me. I just think it's cool to have LED lights on everything. You see, I put my fat quarter bundles and things like that into Ruscots, that come from IKEA. Well, one's from IKEA, the other one came from someplace else. They all go in there. And we'll come back to a little bit more about storage and equipment, but Walter uses these things plus IKEA drawers. I wonder which one has his thread in it. With that, so because they fit underneath there very nicely too. Do I have another picture here? No, that's pick 9, isn't it? Oh yeah, pick 9. Okay. No, do I want that? No, didn't want that one yet. So anyways, tools and equipment. Again, you need a place for everything so you can find it. I'm a great believer in label makers. I label everything. You can see if you look over here on the far side of here, there's labels on those drawers. There's labels on the cupboards. There's labels.
I don't label anything.
No. Maybe you should. I don't know.
I know what's in my drawers.
I just love my label maker. I always have. I label everything. I have a problem, okay? Yeah, what do you want? All right, let's talk about the station setups, okay? Because you always hear them talking about the triangular thing and whatnot. So here's my cutting mat, my cutting area. It's between two of my machines. That big center island that I have, the embroidery machine's at one end, the sewing machine's at the other end. This area under here is for cutting, and it's a fairly large area, and I bought the biggest mat I think you can buy for that. And I even have extensions over here. These are smaller cutting mats. So I don't really cut over in that area, but they're there. This whole thing sits upon two IKEA tabletops with a 3/4 inch piece of plywood that's covered in canvas material. Now, you're going to say, well, isn't that overkill? Yeah, it is. The reason it is that I have this under here, this plywood, is when I first got into sewing, I was using part of our workshop. I called it the sewing dungeon. If you go back to some of the first Idiot Quilter ones, you'll see it. And I had collapsible tables. So I built this big plywood thing to serve as an area where I could throw on a smaller cutting mat to cut, and I could take that off and I could use it as a pressing station. So that's why I have the plywood that's covered in canvas over top of a layer of batting as well. And that's what I used to iron on because I didn't have any room for an ironing board or anything like that, and I needed a big space. So it just happened to fit really nicely here. It levels out everything, and it just makes things a little sturdier. So that's why that's under there. Not something that's necessary, but there it is. I didn't want to get rid of it, so it's kind of being stored there. But huge area for cutting, which is very nice to have. What just happened? Nothing happened. Okay. Then they talk about the
This is looking down the other way now.
This is looking down the other way. Yeah, okay. So now you can see where the 3D printers are and more cupboards and that kind of thing.
And you can see the big TV set, which we're sitting in front of right now for this.
Yeah, the one over here to the left. The big one on the wall is an extra monitor. That one used to be if I want to watch TV, regular TV, but with the internet and everything like that, now what I use it is an additional monitor when I'm doing like pop-up sew days or sewing with Steven or the retreat. It shows everybody up there as well. So whatever angle the room I'm in, I can see my monitors. So this area here, this is relatively recent. This folding table, well, I had the folding table, but it was lower. If you can see down here, I've got, what do they call it? Risers. Actually, I made those risers on my 3D printer because I couldn't find any that were exactly the size I wanted. Because I wanted this table to come level with the extended table to the sewing machine. Because when I've got a quilt and I'm binding it, you know how heavy a quilt is. Well, if it drops off over the edge, or when it was on the table when it was lower, it would catch on the edge of the, well, of the counter and of the extended table as well. And then all hell breaks loose. So I got the idea to raise up the legs of the table, and that's working dandy. But also when I'm doing little pieces and I need to just press them quickly, I've got the little Alicio iron over here at the end, and I've got a wool pressing mat right here that fits on the table. So I can just swivel in the chair and do that kind of a thing. Ideally, what you might like is another table in behind here where you could just swivel around and cut. But I don't have room for that. And I like my big cutting mat anyways. And you should get up every now and then anyways. Now, let's see. Oh yeah, this is that's sewing machines. But Walter's room, let's go back to his main setup. Now, where do you cut?
I have to move my machine to cut.
Well, that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And is this where you press too?
Yeah, I press over there.
Okay. So you've got that. Now, question people are going to ask is, so Walter, do you sew standing up?
No, I moved my chair from, I moved my office chair over to,
well,
to that area. Yeah. And the only problem is I don't have much foot space.
I was going to say, because you've got that thing.
Yeah, but I get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the best thing, but you can get used to it. But yeah, so this is where Walter does his cutting and that. So you see, it's a smaller space, but it's
what
workable.
I do tend to do is if I have to cut out a shirt or something like that, I'll come down to Steve's room to cut out the shirt at night.
Yeah, because it's bigger space for that. I was going to say, in a perfect world in here, I have seen people make these. They take one of those Rustcots that I was talking about, those carts that I have all my fat quarter bundles on. They take a piece of wood that's a little bigger than the top tray. They cover it so it becomes a pressing tray, and they put it on that. And so what happens is they can move it around in their area if they have a smaller area, but you need floor space for that.
Yeah,
that might be a problem for Walter.
The other thing I could do, if I needed more of a cutting area, I could take my embroidery machine and put it somewhere else and have a bigger cutting area. But then I have to figure out where to put the embroidery.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Where are you going to put the embroidery machine?
So because Steve has the cutting area downstairs and he's not always using it, I can sometimes run down and use it for, especially at night or something like that, to cut out a shirt or something.
Which works for us because I'm a day person, he's a night person. So I'm not down there at that time of the night when
and if I really need it during the day, then I'll move my machine sideways or I'll put it on the floor to use the cutting mat.
So let's see here. I showed that. All right, so my pressing area, I think I already showed you. Where's the picture of that? Oh, here it is. Okay, this is my main pressing area. And again, I have one of those pieces, a really thick piece of plywood. I've covered it, put batting in it. And now this does serve a very practical purpose. I can iron on that, but then I got a really long wool mat because I love the wool mats. But here's the problem with a wool mat, if you don't already realize this. If you use steam, it goes right through the wool mat. And if you've got it on top of a table that has a surface that you really don't want to damage, then you've got to have something underneath it fairly thick to keep the steam from going all the way through from the mat to your tabletop. And that's why I have what's here covered for it. But I like having this really long area because especially when you're doing like yardage, and you know, ideally this should be twice that length because I usually buy fabric in 2-meter lengths. This one will only allow me basically a meter, a little more than a meter, to iron in one thing. Then so it hangs over the edge, and then I have to pull it up and do that. It also would be nice to have one that's twice as wide as that, too, for you know when you're spreading it out. But I don't have the space for that. But you adapt. It works. Okay. The sewing machines. Let's talk a little bit about the placement of the sewing machines. Okay. So here's my principal sewing machine. And I try to utilize all little spaces as much too. So underneath this, on the extended table, I have little boxes. These hold bobbins in them. I keep some thread and some little squares of fabric, you know, for leaders and enders and things there. I have a little tray here that has some extra pins in it, my seam rippers, some clips. This little cup usually is full of clips. And I'll come back to this area. But the height of my table is exactly where it should be. The height of your sewing machine should be, if you put your arms out, let me switch the camera. If you put your arms out like this and your elbows down, this part of your arm, you should be able to rest on your table. This will keep you from doing this or doing this, which is going to put a kink in your neck. That's the ideal for that. Now, there are lots of articles written about the ideal placement of your sewing machine and all that kind of stuff, and it's not easy to get that exactly the way it's supposed to be, so you adapt. But that's why mine is set that way. And all this stuff here is all equipment I use when I'm doing videoing, and mostly on my pop-up sew days, because this is an old iPad that I have. It's hooked up here so I can see, and you can see actually this was what I was doing there. This was a sewing, when I took this picture, it was a sewing day, I think. Oh, no, everybody hadn't come in yet. I have multiple screens going on. This is an old iPhone, and it's hooked in so I can use my switcher board, which is main one sits down here where we are right now, off to the corner. So, you know, I can switch my cameras around. Well, I can do it from that too. The idea is if I'm sewing, someone enters in or wants to be let in, I can control it all from there without having to get out of the chair. I'm all about convenience. I know it's probably a little bit too anal for people, but it's just me. The way it happens. Okay, the other thing now, Walter's positioning. Where's your... I got a better picture than that. Where is it? Here we go. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. Okay. How's that height for you?
I don't know. I just don't notice it. I guess it's okay. It doesn't bother me.
Well, then it's fine.
And if you notice, I don't use my extended table.
Why?
Because I find it's annoying.
Oh. Well, actually, though,
I don't do quilting.
No.
Right? I just do garments. So
I was going to say, I could see why it would be annoying, because sometimes you got to get around, like when you're doing your sleeves or stuff.
Yeah.
I could see that might get in your way with it. So now that also, but your other one, your serger and cover stitch machine.
Yeah, they're kind of actually the serger I use on the left hand side. That I have to move my irons if I use the cover stitch, but I haven't used cover stitch for a bit, so as much as I used to. It's better if I'm using stretchy fabric than if I use just cotton. So,
so do you use those sitting down?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see you have to like.
I have to move my chair over.
Oh, okay, and make a room for it.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, actually, I've got. I sometimes throw the bags into the corner there. It's it's squishy because if I use the embroidery machine, I have to put everything out of the corner to use the embroidery machine.
Now, we'll come back to storage space because I see an underutilized areas in your room, but we'll come back to that when we're talking about that. So, also there's the whole idea of your chair. Now, when I first started sewing, where's my picture here? When I first started quilting in that, I was using a folding chair. And that wasn't working out very well. It wasn't the right height for what I had out in the sewing dungeon area. Then I actually got the idea from my hairdresser. She has a little roll around chair. You know, I forget what they call. Well, they call them. Some of them are called saddle chairs. They don't have a back. I wanted something. Well, a stool. Basically, it's a stool on wheels that adjusts up and down. And I got one of those, and that worked fine for the space I had out there because it wasn't huge and it fit in very well. Problem was it didn't have a back on it, and if I was sitting there for any length of time, after a while my back would get sore because you start to slump. There's no support, but I couldn't get much of a bigger chair in there. Now I did buy one, and it's over in the, or no, Walter's sitting on it right now. A rotating chair. Just stand up for a second, Walter. So this chair, and it's a stool with a back on it, but it also adjusts up and down. Okay, you can sit back on it, and I used that for a while with my sewing machine in this room, and that worked out okay. But lumbar, it's support, and your legs underneath it, I just found it wasn't comfortable.
Yeah, well, I find it doing one of these things and I'm sitting on the chair, I find it uncomfortable after a while.
There you go. Well, too bad. You're not getting my good chair. So this is my good chair. And I bought this. This is an Arrow chair. They're not cheap. They're about $300 to $400, depending. Canadian, I'm talking about. I absolutely love this chair. It's adjustable in height, it swivels, and you can store stuff under the seat because that opens up. It's on a hinge. This is actually technically my second one. Well, I have the original parts from the first one. I'm still using those, the black parts, but the back and the seat are brand new because the covering I had on it before, which is what it came with, it was, I think they just made out of quilting cotton.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It wore out, and I'd only had the chair for maybe a year or so, especially down here where your back of your legs go on the edge of it. That was all wearing through. So I wrote to the company and said I was, when you spend that kind of money on it, you expect it to last. And it's not like it's being abused. It's just daily use. They told me they would send me, they said, go ahead and pick whatever you like because they have various different covers. And I talked to the lady about this via email, and I said I want a more durable cover on it. Now I recovered my old one, but I recovered it in a little heavier fabric. But I mean, I'm not an upholsterer, so it came out okay, but it wasn't the best, and it just annoyed me. They sent me the back, new backing, and a new seat in this fabric that I picked. This is a heavier fabric. This is not a quilting cotton. This is more like an upholstery fabric, which is exactly what their chairs should be made with. And so I recommend that if you buy one of these chairs, they're good chairs. I really like it. It gives you lots of support. It has lumbar built into the back of it. If you're short like I am, it's great because it doesn't cut into the back of your legs and make them go to sleep. it is worth the money, but get it with the heavier duty fabric on it. Don't get the other fabric looks really pretty because they have different, have sewing machines or spools on them or cats or something like that, and it looks very, very nice. But if you want something that's going to last, get the heavier fabric on it. And good company, because I sent them pictures of what I was talking about and they did not give me any hassle, which I was kind of surprised at. So yeah, and you want an adjustable chair because, you may not be able to put your sewing machine in exactly the best level. The chair compensates for that if you can raise it up and down for that kind of thing. And why wheels? Yeah, you may not be going to roll around all over your room with it, but guess what? You get up, you get down, you get up, you get down, you get up, get down. If you've got to drag your chair, depending on what you've got underneath on the floor for it, if you've got carpeting, well, it's going to catch. That's why I have one of those plastic or acrylic, I don't know what they call them, a chair mat under that, so I can roll around without too much of a problem. Because those wheels, they work on carpet, but it's going to wear your carpet out too. And it may catch. If you've got tile floor or if you've got hardwood, well, they move a little bit better, but then you need to put gliders on the bottoms of the chairs for that kind of thing. So yeah, wheels are great for getting up and getting down. Now I don't have a picture of what Walter's desk chair looks like, but it's a desk chair. It's just a regular.
It's my old office chair.
Oh, what, from when you worked?
Where I worked, yeah.
So, and it seems to be working, I guess. It's adjustable, right. So they'll work too. Just one of those office chairs. They're not cheap either.
I mean, I can't really have a second chair in that room because the room isn't very big, so.
No. So, whereas I've got about 3 chairs in this room, 2 of which I use. One I'm sitting on right now, and the other one Walter's sitting on. That's the only time I use the chair that he's sitting on. I use the office or the other chair, the Aero chair. Alrighty, so talked about that. Thread storage. Okay, because what else besides fabric? We'll come to fabric. What else do we have that takes up space and we need to have organized in some way? That's not what I want to show there. Where is it? Thread storage, thread storage, thread storage. Where's my thread storage? It's here somewhere. There we go. IKEA is great for sewing rooms. I have a lot of IKEA stuff in mine. I have this set of Alex drawers, and this is all my embroidery threads. This is where I keep them, and I've got a lot of embroidery threads. But these are great. Yes, you can see I label things with it. So I like that. But some people like the spool, what do you call them? Holders, yeah, and that kind of thing, which are okay too if you've got wall space for it. But that's the way you used to store your threads.
Yeah, I do. But right now, where the bookcase that I have right now isn't very wide, and it I sometimes didn't really care for my threads being there, and I couldn't put all my threads there anyway. So that's why I put them all in one of those 12 by 12 boxes right now, and I have it on a counter. I don't access my threads that much, but they're all in one spot, and I can just sort of look at them and pick one out from there.
I thought you were putting them in these drawers.
Yeah, those are my embroidery threads down there.
Oh, okay.
Right? But then I've got sewing threads in a whole bunch of different colors because I use a lot of different colors for sewing threads because I change my sewing thread depending on what color shirt I'm making. Yeah. Or whatever.
Now you say the plastic storage boxes. So where do you put the plastic storage boxes?
They're on the other side next to my, they're on my filing cabinet.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I have a picture of that.
You probably don't.
I do have a picture of that one cabinet that you've got all your, yeah, that one. And
yeah, okay, I've got the shirt hanging there, and I've got, it doesn't show very well, but I've got threads in one box there, and then I have a 12 by 12 box sitting on top of it that has
peeking through
a bunch of other threads in it.
So that's another way you can keep them. I used to keep threads in those big boxes too when I was in the sewing dungeon before. Okay, so there's many ways you can store your threads. IKEA drawers are excellent for that kind of thing. Some people like to keep them on the wall, on those pegs. That's how mine are stored for my Lucy, for my long arm in the other room. Because, and the one reason I store them that way, I bought these racks from Amazon that are metal, and they work really well because I've got a lot of threads for thread choices, glide thread. But I think it looks pretty.
With all that cabinet colors. Leaning? I don't think it's leaning that bad. I think you took a picture crooked.
No, I probably took the picture crooked because I was probably had one foot up on a bag of stuff and another foot stuck over in a corner trying to find space to plant myself. Yeah, that would probably be it. Okay. Yeah. Now, ideally in a sewing room, everybody wants a design wall. And unfortunately, I didn't have a spare wall. So, let me find my
14.
Ah, there we go. This is my design wall. Well, actually, it's my design curtain. Ideally, I would have liked to have had a nice solid wall that I could have put the cloth on. This is a design wall fabric I bought. I bought it on Amazon. It's by Gypsy. And I had to do a little hemming of it. And when I got the idea, well, why not treat it like a curtain? So on this bookcase that's behind it, which is where I store my fabrics, I put up this curtain rod, and I bought these rings, again from Amazon, that have little clips on them. And it's all clipped there. Now what I can do is, and I think there's a picture. Yeah. So that's what's behind my design wall. That's where I keep all my fabrics, on that bookcase. The design wall, I just take it and I slide it over, and when I want to get in there, and when I don't, I just pull it back. Now I did put a little Velcro on the side. I had to hem this a little bit to fit here because it was a bit bigger than the space I have. And I have another piece of Velcro down here, and there's one on the other side too. When I pull it over, that just makes it lay a little bit flatter, a little more taut. But the problem with this design wall is, because there is nothing solid behind it, stuff will fall off it. It is like a felt, so you should be ideally able to just take your blocks and just hang them on there with everything. I have to pin everything that I put on it. So like these pieces that you see sitting there now, they're pinned on there through it. So that's why it would be nice if I had, one of those ones that a lot of people make them out of that insulation board. And they mount that on a wall, and then you can just put pins right through it and hold things up. Or if you cover it in batting or whatever, or felt, you can just stick your stuff on. That would be my ideal. Actually, what I would really like, but I have yet to figure out how to do this, is to put a track up with a wall that will, like an accordion, it would fold up, or it would slide, the panels would slide in behind each other, so you could compress your wall, make it bigger, but when you're not using it, you could slide the panels, like kind of like those doors in a shopping mall kind of idea that go across. But and I have seen people have made those, but again, I don't know how to do that in this space. There's another type of design wall you can get, I've seen people use, and it looks like a roller blind. And they're quite expensive to buy because we've seen them at shows. And essentially, they are like, remember the screens they used to pull down in school when you're going to see a movie? They're like that. You hang them up, you pull it down, you can put your stuff on, but they're also designed that I think whatever's on it, you can roll it back up with the stuff on it and it'll stay. Sort of. I question that. But they're $400, $500, $600 for something like that, depending on the size you get. Now, I've seen some people have made their own using a roller blind. They bought a cheap roller blind, and they've done that. But
actually, you can buy these outdoor roller blinds that aren't too
oh
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
like ideally, I'd like to be able to just say to Echo, design wall up, design wall down. But I'm all about my electronics, all about moving parts. But this is working for me right now. And most of the time I have it open because I'm using it all the time. Walter, do you have a design wall?
No, because I don't quilt.
And so you don't need a design wall.
No.
No.
I don't have a mannequin either, so.
You don't have a Judy. No. Would you use a Judy?
No, there's I don't know, I might if I had a man one, yeah.
What do they call the man one?
I forget.
Joe?
I don't know
A Joey?
It's called something.
But okay, so fabric storage. Well, many ways to store fabric, and I have tried many of them. This method seems to work the best for me. I put the fabric on comic book cardboard, wrap it around, put it up there. It's okay for the larger pieces, not so good for smaller pieces. Or when you get to the point where you've got a piece that you can't really wrap around anymore, it's too small. So what do you do with that? Well, back quarters, for example, or remnants. I fold up. I have these baskets in the IKEA drawers. And in fact, all of these drawers you see here are all either fat quarters or smaller pieces that I'm able to fold up. This is about as neat as it ever gets. Ideally, and I keep saying I'll do this, but life is too short, I would like to organize all the drawers by color and have, all my blues and reds and stuff like that. Could be done, but I end up just throwing them in there whichever way. This actually is probably the neatest drawer right now. The other ones, every now and then I'll go to a drawer and I will take stuff out and reorganize it and that kind of thing when I'm absolutely bored and have nothing better to do. But it's not easy to store little small pieces, and I know people have many ways. I used to throw them into a cabinet and I labeled it and I tried to put all the colors together and I was just throwing pieces in. Well, then that just looked like a scrap bag full of stuff. That didn't work out very well. And yeah, I'm still working on fabric storage. Other things that I have too. We put this in about a year ago, or no, this is not a year ago. It's not the one I'm talking about. We have that row of cabinets. This used to hold, well, it's held many things over the years. It used to have a lot of crafting supplies in it, and that when I got out of doing all of that, it's now holding fabric again. Wide back cutoffs, mostly in that, but I've gone out into other things. The problem with the closed cupboard storage, I find, is yes, it looks really neat. You can hide your mess behind the doors.
But then you forget what you've got.
Exactly. You forget what you've got. So that's one problem. And then I had another bookcase that used to have books on it, but I don't read books anymore, at least not regular books. I read electronically. So I got rid of a lot of the books I had. In fact, I think this is the last of the books I have right here. And it became, again, space for fabric. Now, these ones are put horizontally. They're on comic book board, but the reason they're not stacked up vertically is because I can get more in there this way. And that's the problem with shelving. Like the comic board thing is great, but a lot of times your shelves are either too tall, so you have a lot of wasted space and you can't adjust that in some cases, or they're too short.
Or they're too deep.
Because
I've got a shelf where my stuff's all rammed in there. It started being really nice and neat, but then I start pulling fabric in and out.
There it is.
Right? That's the top part, the top row. That was neat. It's now a little messy. But the problem is with that shelf, it's really, really deep. So if I used comic book cards, I could get 2 rows in a shelf. But the problem is the back row I wouldn't see.
Yeah. So that's the problem, because you got to be able to see your fabric or you're not going to use it. Okay, if you're
even as it is, like and the middle parts are messy because they were kind of not too bad at one point, but then I started yanking fabrics out, and then I started ramming them back in again.
And that's the other thing that I was said earlier about, like, I clean up as I go all the time, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to find anything, and I've gotten into that habit. But I end up rearranging my shelves of fabric all the time. And Walter's got another cabinet too.
Yeah, that needs to be organized, because that's my bookshelf.
And that's your new bookshelf. You just bought that.
Yeah, I just bought that, and it would work with comic books things. I should probably get some, but I also still have some books, and they're on the bottom shelf. So
why do you have my portable water pick on your desk?
I don't know. I put it there because I had the intention of using it for recharging it.
Oh,
but I don't really use it. So
okay. See, there's a lot of things that are in this room.
Yeah.
There used to be another bookcase in here, and it's now.
It was shorter and wider.
Yeah.
It's now out in my tool shed.
Yeah. And there are still
because
books on here.
The window when we had the window replaced earlier this year, I was afraid that the frame on the window would hit the bookcase.
So yeah, and also I think let's see. Oh, this. Okay, something about IKEA drawers that you should be aware of. First of all, I love IKEA drawers, but here's one of the problems with them. You can only use 2/3 of any drawer unless you take out the little screws that keep the drawer from pulling all the way out. They put in a safety feature, so I guess that if you pulled the drawer out too far, it might fall out and drop on your head or something.
Drop on a little kid.
Or drop on a little kid. Well, I removed those so I can get the full use of it, so I can see what's in the very back. But
when you overfill your drawers,
yeah, this is what happens. And I need to go in there and reorganize those. I just haven't got to that yet. That's why these drawers are all crooked, because they're actually falling off the tracks. They're not broken. There's just too much bloody fabric in there. So, yeah. And, what do I want to show here? This one. This one we put in about a year or so ago in this space. And it's purposely opened. I could get doors from it, but as I said, I didn't want doors because then I wouldn't know what was in there. And I love to use baskets. I use baskets for everything. Because they keep things neat and tidy. But this isn't all that neat and tidy, because the more space you have, the more you fill up. Okay, what's that take us to? Okay, let's talk about where do I put my projects. Or no, first of all, let's talk about storage, pattern storage. Okay, pattern storage is a pain in the ass. And I don't know why I am saving all of these patterns things. Now, what I've done here is these are organized according to things I want to do in the future. I print out the pattern or the instructions from the internet and I've labeled them. There's embroidery, there's Christmas, there's Halloween, things like that. I have tried binder methods. Binders don't work for me anymore. But this, I have a filing cabinet. I keep hitting the wrong screen button here. I have this filing cabinet in there. Those are all patterns. Some of them most of them I have made. So why am I hanging on to them? Because unless they were one I actually purchased, I already have them in PDF format. They're on my computer if I ever want them again. The reality is I will probably never make the same quilt twice. So this is filling up a lot of space here that I could probably use for a different type of storage in this old filing cabinet. I know people are always looking for the ideal way to store patterns, and some people use the binders with page protector things on it. Some use the filing cabinet idea. Some use boxes. I don't know. I've yet to find the most suitable way. And then do you spend, I thought of, well, I could alphabetize everything and type, and I think some of them in there are by type. Like, is it a bag pattern? Is it a quilt pattern? Is it whatever? And again, I have better things to do with my time than do that. I mean, I love to organize, but even that is beyond me to do that kind of thing. How do you store patterns, Walter?
I don't have that many patterns, but
you have pieces. Like your patterns are big cutout things too.
Yeah, I've got a little
templates.
I have a little cubby hole. I have things shoved into it, but I don't have that many patterns. So
yeah,
and I have a couple of boxes that have patterns and a couple of clear boxes on my filing cabinet that I have patterns in too. So
now I have heard of people taking the patterns after they've cut out their project of that and putting them on clips and on hangers and hanging them up, but that means you have to have a place to hang them.
Yeah, I have some in plastic bags that are shoved in a cubby hole because I've got them and they're cut out and stuff, so I have to do that. And but there's ones that I probably wouldn't use again, so I should really consider getting rid of those.
Yeah, so that's
like I made a men's tunic, which I never wear.
Oh, a men's tunic. This sounds like something from the Roman times.
Yeah, it's made out of, what do you call it? Linen. And I don't like it.
Okay, so this is a long one today, this video. I am actually, as I say that, I'm thinking about maybe dividing this into a part 1 and a part 2, but we'll see. Anyways, carrying on here, we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
All right, project storage. This is how I store projects. I buy these project boxes, I label them, they have different things in them. I also, though, have this area that you saw a moment ago. These are my current projects. Those other ones are ones I may get to eventually.
Those are the boxes I store my threads in.
Yeah, those are project boxes. I used to use these when I was a scrapbooker. That's where I first got them because they fit 12 by 12 paper in the whole bit. I have a lot of them left over from those days. I like them, but they only can hold so much too. But they're great if you're organizing a project and you have all your pieces. You can put them in this. I put them in little plastic bags inside there, labeled and everything. And if you're going somewhere to a retreat, a class, and you need to take that with you, oh, neighbor's cutting his grass. They're great for that kind of thing. And you can pick them up at, I think Walmart sells them, or Michael's if you have a Michael's. I was going to say a Joann's if you're American, but they don't have that anymore. And so, yeah, so this is what I declare is my project table. And right now it's fairly neat. It's not always that neat. I have to clean it up at times. And below that is my ribbons in a storage thing that fits under this. This is actually a drafting table. I bought that years ago when I first got into scrapbooking. And it's laying flat now. It's not on an angle, but it will go on an angle if I want it to. That's another thing about when you're setting up your sewing room. Look around your house. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg for everything. You may have furniture already that's being underutilized that you can use in your sewing room. Okay. Other types of storage. Well, this is another way I store some of my threads for my embroidery machine, because my embroidery machine sits right up above it. But I have this magnetic bar too. These are all tools that I use principally with my embroidery machine. And when you're organizing your most often used tools, think about where they are in vicinity to your major machines, because that's probably where you're going to use your tools the most. And you don't have to go searching through things being buried. This magnetic bar is really, really strong. I think I bought it from a place that we have here in Canada called Lee Valley. You can get them on Amazon too and that, but some of them are not that
I have
strong.
one that I bought at a dollar store, and it's not that strong. Things tend to drop off of it. That's why I had it mounted on my old bookshelf, but I don't have it mounted anymore because I found it was annoying that things kept dropping off on it.
Yeah. And these thread stands that are here, I bought those from Amazon, and they're the same ones I use out with my long arm as well. And I just screwed them into the side of these cabinets, which is what I use, the IKEA cabinets, to hold up the big cutting table and everything like that. And you might wonder, how do you wire your room? Well, here's a little trick. You can see my sewing machines, there's a long extension cord that goes in the crack between the two doors I told you about that are on, or tabletops from IKEA that are on here, and these, and it goes down there, goes to the far end, and it goes into the one outlet that's in the wall, which has a very big surge protected power base for power bar. Box. It's more than a bar, kind of a thing. And this is how I plug everything in, and I put this bar on here because it's got multiple ones if I need to plug something in closer to this end of the room. So there are not many outlets in this room. So if the fire department ever came in, I have a lot of hidden extension cords throughout this room. In fact, I run one, two, three, there are 5 3D printers in this room. And I was having a problem every time I plugged in my iron in the outlet. If I had a 3D printer going, it would blow the circuit breaker. So I had to be careful with that. So finally I decided, well, there is a little hole in the wall over on that side, and it runs into our crawl space, and the crawl space empties out into our laundry room, and there's an outlet out there that was free. So I ran a very long extension cord through the crawl space, out in behind the washing machines and into that outlet, and that's where my iron's plugged in, and so I don't have to worry about blowing a circuit breaker. Yeah, extension cords can be your friends if you can hide them. Okay, so other things, some people put things on pegboards. I don't think I thought I had a picture of pegboard. I don't have wall space. I don't have any free space, so I found a little, this one, here it is. I made this on my 3D printer. And yeah, it doesn't really work for me, but
it's too small.
It's too small. Yeah, but I just don't have any wall space. So for now, this is what's hanging on it. All of my tape that I use for holding down embroidery pieces with that kind of thing. So again, it's trying to utilize every little free inch of space you possibly can. So bottom line of all this. Oh, one article I found, common sewing room setup questions. I guess they designed these that you should ask yourself when you're setting up a sewing room. You know, what's the best way to set up a sewing room? Small space. How can I organize a large fabric stash effectively? How much does it cost to set up a basic sewing room? Well, these are all matters of opinion. This is British because it's all in pounds that's here. But I'm just showing you this because just go in and use Google AI and put in, how do I set up a sewing room? And you're going to find all kinds of stuff. But again, it has to work for you. And that's why we were showing you what's working for us right now. It's not perfect. In fact, in many ways, professional organizers would go, you suck on this. But it's working for us. But it's always a work in progress. Because as you get more familiar with your work, how you work and that, then you're going to want to alter your area to accommodate that. I guess the bottom line of it is that whatever works for you is your ideal. And what works for Walter certainly wouldn't work for me. Although what works for me would work for Walter, I'm sure, but it would not look like my room looks like. Give him a day in my room, it would look exactly like his. Because underutilized storage space in Walter's mind is floor. Who needs floor? I'm sorry. Now, if I was to redesign Walter's sewing area, there is room for him to put up a set of a cabinetry on the wall.
But then I don't want any more cabinetry because it makes the room even look smaller. I don't want any more.
Okay.
Because I'll just shove more stuff into it. Forget it.
Okay. I'm just a suggestion. I mean, there's also a closet in it. What's in that closet?
It's stuffed full
Of what though?
of fabric, and it's stuffed full of like I have a couple of bags of fabric in there, and I've got my old quilt that I made in there, and a couple of quilts in there, and it's got all my old clothes in there.
And when are you going to wear those?
No, I know I should actually clean all that stuff out, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff of your stuff in there.
What? I got stuff in your closet?
You got your old grainy tablecloths and all this other stuff in there.
What old granny tablecloth?
And I think your grandmother's quilts in there or something too.
No, my grandmother's quilts in I think the closet in the guest bedroom.
Okay, I don't know. I've got a bunch of other stuff in there.
Is there a dead body in there? Jimmy Hoffa?
There is. Well, and then you got 2 sleeping bags in there.
Oh yeah, we need those. Not like we're such campers. Closest we'd ever be glamping, and I wouldn't be using a sleeping bag. I'd want a full-size queen size bed. Okay, enough about that. Anyways, I hope this gave you some ideas, maybe, of at least what not to do, and how we do it in here, because I know you don't see this whole area when we're sitting here oftentimes. So now you've seen the whole area. Just as a parting shot, okay, so as I said, this might be a 2-parter. I have to see how long this really ran, but I think this ran a really long time.
An hour and 25 minutes so far.
Oh, is that all it is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's only... Okay, I'll make it 1 part. What we'll be talking about next week, I don't know. I never know and make it up as we go along. So, if you've got ideas, if you've got suggestions, please, please, please send them. Also, remember, the retreat, there are still spots available. So just send me your first and last name, real first and last name. And if your email address that you send that to is different from the one you want to be contacted at, put that into the body of it too. And I will send you a confirmation to let you know that you are registered for the retreat. And so really, seriously, think about it. Because as I said, in another week, I think there'll be a new surge of people wanting to be in the retreat because they'll know their schedules better. Pop-up sewing day this Saturday, October 11th. All are welcome. I know for us in Canada, it is Thanksgiving, so you might be stuffing your bird. I don't know at the time. If so, well, that's the way it goes. Okay, have a great week. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and put your comments below, and we'll see you later. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.